Hey everyone, and thanks for coming. And we're really back. And I've been doing a little bit of traveling, so it's the time zone is not working out. So right now, I'm glad I'm back. So let's get this weekly call back on track. Okay, because seems quite some people that want to have this update. All right. So today, I'm going to cover the topic, and maybe next week too. So about ordinals. By the way, can you see guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah. Let me hide the. All right. So, how many of you heard about this ordinals, especially on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I have heard about it and the port to BSV, but honestly, I don't fully get the technicalities, so to say. Yeah, but have heard it's massive.
Great. Then you are in the right place. So today I'm going to talk about a little bit of the protocol, how this token protocol work, and then later on I'm going to show how it fits why it fits very well with sCrypt paradigm. Basically, you can use sCrypt to control how the ordinal tokens transfer, just like how you control Bitcoin satoshis. So far, all, all of our, I wouldn't say all, like if not all, but most of our contract has been used to control, how satoshis move around, right? You can use signatures or hash per images, whatnot. You can use those to control, to move, satoshis, Bitcoin satoshi. But so far, we haven't demonstrated. What about tokens? That's also another big category of assets on chain, especially now people tokenize real world assets. All right. So let's talk about ordinals first. So ordinals, uh, so if you have been following our Medium, our blog, so actually I first wrote about it, almost at the beginning of the year when it first came up. It first came up on BTC in January, but history goes back a little bit more than that. Basically, it's still the same old idea of color coins. It's like you have physical bills and then you write, you color them with different colors, or you write some notes on it so you can represent something other than the bills themselves. Okay. So the ordinal idea actually is even, came earlier than year 2023. Actually first came up, as far as I know, on the Bitcoin forum in as early as 2012. Okay, so it's a very old idea. Somehow it got resuscitated, got revived on BTC January this year. Since then, it has, gained a lot of popularity. I think I first got hold of it and then understand it in February. So I wrote an article about this. The idea is also very simple, and also I think it's elegant. So basically, it take advantage of the fact that each Bitcoin, that's a atomic. Bitcoin is not continuous. The supply, is that's the smallest atomic unit. It's like the atoms. You cannot divide them further. I mean, physics, you can still, let's not talk about core, the neutrons, but that's an atomic unit called Satoshi. And each Bitcoin equals to 10 to the power of 8 Satoshis, because we only have 21 million Bitcoins ever. So you can have, 2 quadrillion, 2.1 quadrillion number of satoshis ever existed. Okay, because you only have this finite number, and each of them is, you can think about, came into existence once mined by a miner and minted in the Coinbase transaction. So you can think about every satoshi come into existence. It's like it's almost is born with a unique sequence number. Does this make sense so far? It's finite, and it all came into existence by minting in the Coinbase transactions, that such that each Satoshi has a unique serial number on it. Make sense so far?
Yeah, it makes sense. My only question will be, will have potentially or eventually they will have an ordinal number associated. So when you receive your, when you mine a block and you receive the reward, there is no, you only know that that reward have some satoshis, and for them you can eventually figure out which is the ordinal number for each of them. Is more or less correct?
You are saying, for example, when you first mined, for now you mine 6.25 Bitcoins, but all those have, you don't know, it's like came into existence at the same time. So it's not, straightforward or trivial to kind of like order them in sequence. Is that so? That's why maybe this all this 62.25 times 10 to the power of 8 Satoshi, they have the same sequence. Is that your question?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that you have like a big block of those satoshis, and then if you can potentially split all those satoshi by satoshi, and then every time you split, you can figure out the ordinal of that sat you have split. Is that how it will work?
Yes, exactly. So that's actually, because a group of them, a bunch of multiple of Satoshi that are minted at the same time, then we need a way to order them, pretty much, right? So that's how you, even though come into the same existence, came into existence at the same time, but still we need a way to uniquely assign sequence numbers to them, even they're in the same group, mined together. Okay, so that's how the ordinal protocol come into play. So for example here, let's look at one example here, and also the idea is very simple. So you can think about almost as a, you look at any Bitcoin transaction, right? It has inputs, it also has some outputs. Okay, so you can almost think about, each Satoshi is they call it first in, first out. Okay, so you are pretty much a mapping from, you order all the inputs in order in the and also all the satoshis in them, and then you put almost like a, let's say, put a tag. You label them, right? For example, this one first input has 2 satoshis, so you label them A, B, and then for example here it has only 1 satoshi. You say, hey, this is C. So this has 3. You say that label as D, E, F, and then you go through the output one from first one to the last one, and then you just assign them sequentially. For example, here you have 4 satoshis, right? So it's getting from 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the 4 is mapped here, and then same thing here. If you have 1 satoshi, you are mapping from, because A, B, C, D already go here, so E has to go, that's the next one, and come here. Does this make sense? That's ordinal protocol. That's, you may have different ways to map these satoshis, but that's how the ordinal protocols map them from inputs to outputs.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, and then you may ask, what happened to this F? Is it burned, or what do you guys think? So yeah, it came up here, right? This is because, can anybody guess what's up here?
What's up there? On the fee for the
black box. What's this?
Yeah, so it will be the fees for the miner, the part that hasn't been spent and that hasn't been sent to anywhere else goes to the fee. So in this case, F has not been used in the input, and that means that it's part of the fee, and that will be allocated to the the fee for the miner.
Yes, exactly. And then this is at the transaction level, and then you can think about all the, at the block level, right? So all these ordinals, eventually they go to the Coinbase and they get assigned to the miners. And also the miners get the subsidy. So subsidy also ranked the same way. So, for example, if it's get, let's say 6.25 Bitcoins, and you have a lot of Satoshis in it. So at that moment, before you transferring, gets transferred, you don't know actually, which Satoshi get which ordinal number, a sequence number. But once it starts moving, you know, right? According to this rule, every Satoshi has a unique sequence number. Does this make sense? It's going to be between 0 and 2.1 quadrillion.
Yeah.
Now, for example, right, from the block, from the Genesis block, right, that's 50 Bitcoins. It's going to be, the sequence number going to be 0 to 50 times 10 to the power of 8, right? Because it came out first, and then second is going to be 50 to 100, and then it's 100, 1 to 150, right? It's always like this, right? So you can rank all, you can order all of them. Think about it. You can order all the Satoshis that's ever going to come into existence, one next to each other in a Coinbase. And once you can do that, you also follow this rule of how they get from the inputs to the output. Then you can, for every Satoshi out there, it has this unique sequence number. So that's a basic idea. Make sense so far?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So once we have that established, each Satoshi now has a unique sequence number. It's almost like physical notes. You have a $1, $2. That's a sequence number of that. One is, minted at, let's say, I think it's at Treasury. That's a mint, US mint. For example, when it's first printed, there's a unique sequence number there. It's almost the same idea here. I don't know whether it's globally unique for nodes, but in fact, we can assume for every, US dollar, $1 out there, it's going to be a globally unique number. It's the same thing for Satoshi here. Okay. So once we have that, let's see how we can, color it. Okay. So that's how we color it under Ordinals protocol, right? So, that's the protocol side. So basically it's using Bitcoin script to color each Satoshi. So they call this inscription, right? It's almost like you inscribe something on a physical coin, right? Let's say you have US 1 cent, and then you are writing this data onto the coins itself. In reality, in Bitcoin SV, so you create a new output with 1 Satoshi, and then you put this, this script in the script part. So it mostly contains 2 parts. I think one is, you can customize 2 parts. This one, it has this up, false, if, and then you push ordinal, stands for ordinal. Then you push this. This is a so-called content type, right? This basically uses the, what is the MIME type? The same thing you see in the web world. It just carries from there. So this is the data you're going to push, and this is going to push, hey, what type of data is this? In this case, it's plain text, right? Or you may say, hey, this is JPEG. You just put your picture here, of course, serialized into bytes. And then if this is the JPEG, you're going to say, hey, this is the picture, this is JPEG, or this is the PDF, and then you put the serialized PDF here. So basically you have, in this way, because here you can push arbitrary data. It's just, byte stream, right? It's just bytes, raw bytes. So in this case, you can assign arbitrary data onto each Satoshi. They call it inscription. Basically, you can write anything on a coin. That's the basic idea.
Yeah, makes sense. The only thing will be if you transfer the coin, could you write something else?
Okay,
Or
very good question. Okay, it's kind of like let's say yes and no. No and yes. Let me put it this way. So, for example, if you can notice here, this thing, because this is force, if you know, this is pretty much like assembly language. They call it a script. So this is force. This is the big if branch, right? Because this is force. So this one is never gets executed, right? So it's like a no op. Right? This never gets executed. So in reality, this is not going to be the only script. It's going to be, put together with some other script. For example, pay to public hash. So you can, I think they in BTC a lot of by convention you put it at the end of the script. So in the case I talk about, you create a new output, you put one Satoshi into it, and then you put pay to public key hash script, and then followed by this. Okay, so that's how you inscribe it. Now your Satoshi is associated with the data here. Okay, it can be a picture, can be text, can be a video, whatever it is. And then if you're asking how do you transfer it, right? Because now you have the NFT, right? They also call it digital artifacts to differentiate it with NFTs on other blockchains. Because here, right, you can see the difference. The biggest difference, the data itself is actually on chain. It's not just a hash or pointer to some the original NFT, a picture, maybe stored in IPFS or AWS servers. It's not, right? That's the biggest difference. So when you transfer it, for example, at the beginning, this is minted to Alice. If Alice wants to transfer it to Bob, how would he do it? How would she do it? She doesn't need to carry this because it's already associated with the set. So she only has to create an output. This output has two things. First, this Satoshi, this set must go to that output according to this rule, right? For example, here, now he has covered this one, colored this one. He needs to create another output with only one Satoshi and make sure this ordinal map to that, right? The ordinal map to that output, and that output belongs to Bob, basically to Bob's address. Here's the key difference. That's in the new output, there's no inscription anymore. So basically you don't have to carry this every single time you transfer. It's only when you inscribe it, it has data. But when you transfer it later on, you don't have it.
Okay.
Follow me so far?
I think so. So basically, first time let's say you mint the coin, and then once it's minted, you transfer the property to someone else, but the coin is already there, and the description, what you wrote on the coin is still there. So this hello world will be transferred on the coin that Alice gives to Bob. Is that
yes?
Okay?
Yes. That's why I say no, you don't have to inscribe it again. But what if when you Alice transfer to Bob, and in the new output, you also put some new inscription there, right? For example, instead of hello world, you can say, hello, you can say, hola, right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean? So at least for now, that's the protocol is a little bit ambiguous because they call this a re-inscription, right? Because you have two choices. One, you can say, oh, once this set is inscribed, it cannot be overwritten, right? So, hey, this stays forever, right? That's how the so-called NFT stays immutable forever. That's the claim, right? You can also say, hey, now it's being, it's being overwritten, right? So it can mean now that's ordinal represents Ola, right? So you have two ways. I think the most popular way right now is still you think of you don't consider re-inscription because that's another big story. It's just more complicated in terms of the protocol. So for now, for all our purpose, we don't consider re-inscription. So once it's inscribed, you can think about it's immutable. This set now from now on, because set, right? If you look at here, it's like energy, right? You can transfer, you can do different forms, you hear different outputs, but it never gets destroyed. Do you see what I mean here? Because even ants here, right? It just move around. It's always have this number, but it never gets destroyed. I mean, let's not consider about it. You intentionally burn it, locking some unspendable UTXO. That's if we don't intentionally burn it, it's always going to flow around. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So that's how we do it in Bitcoin SV. So that's how you inscribe anything. So that's just high level. A short introduction on how Ordinals protocol work, and then once we get a hold of this, understand this, let's talk about how, hey, why do we want to mention these tokens instead of other tokens? Especially jointly with sCrypt, with what everything we have talked about so far. If you go back all our videos or documents, it's all about how to use sCrypt to control the Bitcoin satoshis, right? But now, because satoshis can have another meaning, because of the ordinals, they can represent, text, they can represent, pictures. So now, because sCrypt can control how satoshis, and satoshis now can represent other, instead of just a raw satoshi, it can have another meaning assigned by ordinal protocol. So that means you can use sCrypt contract to control how ordinal tokens, they transfer, right? For example, instead of only, control using sCrypt smart contract to control how, the coins from Alice sent to Bob, right? You are in the contract, you say, hey, Bob and this to sign. So once Bob signs, he got the satoshis, right? But then because satoshis also have some other meaning according to token protocols like ordinals, you can essentially control how tokens work. So this just opens another new dimension. Not only control Bitcoins, but also control the tokens. And tokens, as we know, right, can represent anything. It can be a piece of art. You can be like a certificate for your degree, like a title for your house. It can be anything, right? So that's how, that's why recently we have been focusing a lot of our efforts to tell people, hey, you can really use sCrypt to control how tokens move. Okay. So far, so good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then let's look at a little bit of detail, because, here, again, I talk about the case here, you see, you are inscribing hello world into a Satoshi, into an ordinal. And then let's see, how do you control the movement for this? Let's say I want to lock into a smart contract, right? So how would you do it, and why can you do it? Okay, so I call this a bunch of script. I just call them inscription script. It's just this sequence of opcodes put together, and this is the content, the type of content, and this is the actual content. Okay, so inscription script, it's a very important property, as I briefly mentioned before. So for example, I have a sCrypt smart contract, eventually it's compiled down to like a script, right? I still call it locking script here. So what if I put this script in front of it, or at the end of it, or in the middle of it? What will happen? Does it change the behavior of the login script here? Anyone have a guess?
I'm
I don't get
assuming that this one.
Anyone? Yusuf, or does it matter?
Yes, I said I don't get the question. I
Why?
didn't get your question, sir. I
So
don't understand the question.
okay, let me explain. So basically, because I talked about this earlier, because if you look at the script, this inscription script, because it's
That's
if
the copy false, right?
yeah, because it's never get executed, but it's like a no op, right? It doesn't do anything because it never execute, even it's there, right? It's similar to like op knob, or like you push something, you drop it immediately. It doesn't affect the execution of a script.
Or like if it was commented out or something. So everything you add afterwards won't be executed no matter what because of the OP false in the beginning.
Yes.
So you can put the login script first and then the inscription script, and that will allow you to add smart contract capabilities to that token. But if you do it the other way around, no matter what you add after the inscription script, that will be, let's say, commented out, and yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's like a comment.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good analogy. It's like a comment. I mean, it's like you have this code here in terms of script, and then you put some comment. The comment, as we all know it, it doesn't change how the code works, right? Doesn't matter what
Yes.
kind of comment is there, right? So basically here,
If-
you can inscribe anything there, and it won't affect at all how the original smart contract works. But then the smart contract, as you said, we're adding smart contract capability to Ordinals. All right, you just said this, but if you do some Google Ordinals smart contract, everybody will tell you, oh, Ordinals, the biggest shortcoming is it doesn't have smart contract capability, and we just prove them wrong. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we just said it. You just said it. I think you didn't even read the title. So basically, we add a smart contract ability to Ordinals, right? Because people say, oh, Ordinals compare, let's say, to ERC20 or 721 or Ethereum or EVM compatible chains. Yeah, Ordinals on Bitcoin is cool, but right, it lacks smart contract. So that's not too much you can do. You can only transfer it, you can mint it, and then you can transfer it from Alice to Bob. But not anymore, because in this way, this fashion, this is your ordinal, and this is the smart contract, and they can be combined, right? It's super composable, meaning you can combine them in arbitrary way, right? For example, this can be a picture, and this can be like, let's say, pay to public hash, time lock, atomic swap, anything you can think of, right? So that means you can use arbitrary smart contract to control how your ordinals work. Okay. So when you mint it, that's how you do it, right? Because for minting, as long as I have script, this script in the final script, I consider this as inscription according to ordinal protocol, right? And then because you can also, instead of lock it into a regular address, meaning pay to public hash script, you can lock it in any script generated locking script, right? Compiled from your smart contract. So that's how you do it. So you can when you mint it, you don't mint it to Alice or Bob. You can mint it to a smart contract. Okay. So minting is easy, right? Looks like it. Transfer is even easier because, as I said before, when you transfer, when the ordinal moves hand, you don't have to inscribe it again. So you just do the normal script, You just, once you mint it, you can just transfer it to any new script, pay to public hash, multi-sig, whatnot, right? So that's the whole idea. how ordinals work perfectly together with sCrypt paradigm. Any comments, questions so far?
Nothing. Thanks.
So let's we just talk about the idea, right? Ideas of how to combine Bitcoin tokens, ordinals meaning here, and Bitcoin smart contract, specifically sCrypt here. So how would let's look at one example. I think it's a cool example, which previously people think is impossible. So let's look at this so-called permissioned ordinals. For tokens, in general, people divide it into two. There are many ways to categorize them, but one dimension is whether it's so-called permission or not. So for regular ordinals, people think about is they call it a permission. Basically, if Alice owns this ordinal, she doesn't need anybody else, even the issuer, to approve when she sends to Bob. Right? She can send it to anybody at any time. Okay, because it's just UTXO. You can transfer this. It's just a Satoshi. You can transfer to anybody you want. Okay. But what if you want to, make sure, hey, every transfer has to be approved by the issuer or any central party or third party. Every transfer has to go through it. Looks like impossible, if you don't have smart contract, right? Because how would you? Because we're locked in a pay-to-pay hash. If you can unlock it and then move the ordinal, then according to the protocol, the ordinal is already transferred. So how can you make sure every transfer needs to get permission, for example, from the issuer, for a lot of reasons, right? For example, we may have a token that's represent, title, right? Your title of a house, a car. Oh, you may need approval from the government when you are moving it, when you are selling a house or selling a car, right? Just one example. So there are cases you want to make sure the ordinal transfers need some permission from some third party, which is impossible, right? If you only look at if you don't think about smart contract, right? So fortunately, as I said, because ordinals can be combined with arbitrary smart contract, you can actually do this, and it's quite simple. Okay. So for our case, right, we use a so-called, if you talk about here, we use a stateful contract. For people who ever listen to this, you're probably already familiar with stateful contract. Basically, you carry the state, and then the only variable here, stateful, is the owner, right? So for example, when it first minted, it means to the Alice. Then let's look at the transfer, okay? So of course, the owner has to sign, right? Of course. But we also have add this clause here, we add this check, say, hey, let's, in this case, we make sure that also the issuer also have to sign. So when you transfer, not only the owner has to sign, but the issuer also has to co-sign as well. So this is how you do it. I think the rest is, if you already know sCrypt stateful contract, is pretty much straightforward, right? You make sure this thing keeps going, right? So Alice goes to Bob, and then Bob, if Bob wants to transfer Charlie, this condition still persists, right? Because it's a stateful, so every time transfer, you have to execute this. Isn't this beautiful? With a short, straightforward contract, you pretty much doing something people think is impossible to do. Just make sure the transfer is permissioned. Is this idea code clear so far?
Yeah. All good here.
Okay. And then I just showed you one example, right? Because as I said, it's fully composable, meaning you can combine an Ordinal with arbitrary smart contract, right? Because of this paradigm. This is pretty much like a no-op. So you can combine with arbitrary smart contract here. It doesn't matter. So here we just use permission Ordinal smart contract. But of course, you can think about many other cases and people already play with it. Right? For example, Ordinal lock. So what does this Ordinal lock does is you can think about it's like it ensures trustless sale, right? So if you have Ordinal, you want to trade with somebody else, to pay you Bitcoin, what do? You have two choice. You have, the typical way. If Alice has an Ordinal and Bob wants to buy it with Bitcoins, well, they can. Alice, the naive way would be, Alice sends Bob the Ordinal first, and then Bob pays Alice. Is there a problem here? Potential problem? Is there any risk? If I have Ordinal, you want to buy it with Bitcoin, I send you the Ordinal first, and then you pay me your Bitcoin. What's the issue here?
So you give the Ordinal first.
Yes?
So that means the buyer may, if he likes, he may not pay you.
Yeah, you have the risk,
Maybe
right? You run away, right? If I already give you the Ordinal, you don't need to give me
run
your
away.
Bitcoin, right? So
So
you can run away.
he may run away, already give him the Ordinal.
Yeah, so that's the issue. You have the trust issue, right? It's always like a recurring thing. If we're doing trading, we may not even trust each other. But thanks to the quick Ordinal lock smart contract, so this contract also does something very easy. You just deploy a contract. This contract just says, hey, whoever pays, let's say 1 Bitcoin to my address, you unlock this. You can take the Ordinal. You can unlock and take the Ordinal. Okay. So in this case, nobody can cheat, right? Because it's all enforced by smart contract. Of course, it has a almost escape patch, basically meaning, hey, maybe after a day or two, nobody buys, I'm going to take this, I'm able to cancel that order and take it back. And, this is another one example. People already also use this to mint domain names. They say, hey, if you want to mint some names fully on chain, you can use this protocol. And then every time you mint, it's going to issue a Ordinal token representing the ownership of this domain. Okay, so very interesting. I definitely go check it out. And also I'll talk about, you can use atomic swap, because this is just a smart contract called the hash lock time contract. You can lock up your tokens, Ordinals in that, and then you can use this to atomic swap between them. Okay. Yeah, a lot of other, like a blacklisting. You can say, hey, when you transfer, you cannot transfer for this set of listed address. You cannot do this. Or you can do blacklisting, right? When you transfer, the recipient can only from this list, right? And then you can also do, hey, the issuer have like a guard mode. Every time, at any given moment, you can stop this, right? Or if somebody send it to a provably burned address, you can say, hey, I have another, basically you have another escape patch. Yeah, you have another backup public function, which you can call anytime to unlock this, right? So you can think of all kinds of different ways to combine, because it's so flexible. The Ordinals can be combined with arbitrary smart contract, right? That's the beauty of it. It's not only one type, which a lot of protocols have it's very rigid, the format. You can only do this and that. For us, we always give the developers the flexibility. You can do anything you want. It's just fully programmable. So whatever contract you have, you can use it to control how Ordinals transfer work on minting. All right. I think, yeah, that's what I have today. I think I covered quite a lot, how Ordinals protocol works, and then why sCrypt is a perfect match for sCrypt. And I also show you several examples. So I think in the next few ones, I'm also going to cover more examples. But for today, it's just an overview. All right.
Yeah,
All right. Any
that's great. Yeah, thanks.
comments? I think it's very interesting and opens a new dimension. So definitely check out what these articles are and play with the code. All right. Questions? All right. If not, let's call it a day and hope to see some of you, all of you next week. All right. Okay. Bye bye, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
You. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye, Yusuf, Adrian. Bye bye.